Howdy doody, folks. UltimatDjz here with our first teaching trick video on patch D24, territory captures, and I'd like to share with you what we have learned here so far. First, I would like to ask you this because I will forget later. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments in the section below the video so we can answer those for you as time goes on, and please, please, please share this with your team because red alert! Coming right now, some super nerdy math, but a formula for how your alliance can be successful at territory capture. So, let's begin. The launch of this event, well, went so-so. Relatively smooth tech-wise, a few bugs here and there, but for the most part, working decently. A patch released yesterday and a client update to address a large number of these bugs, but a slight lack in communication may have soured the taste for some of you. For example, how about the gating of origin space for many of you? Panic told the community that there would be a very grindy event to gate the access for the first 72 hours, but this was done to attempt to mitigate lag for a lot of folks. By limiting the early access to origin space, there was not a huge drain on the servers all at once. I'm technically okay with this mentality, but the problem was only a few people actually got this message. Don't worry, folks. If you are under Ops 25, you are not left in the cold either. Many folks thought that under Ops 25 would never get to play because you couldn't get the Unlock Origin Space event. Well, do not fret. You are also being gated. At the end of the 72-hour Unlock Origin Space event, you're going to receive a gift chest with the 100 G3 raw isogen to pay for the mission in your gifts area. Basically, under Ops 25, you were automatically locked out for the first 3 days. But if you were over Ops 25 and you found the time to grind out this incredibly grindy long event, then you could have gotten in early. One other piece of feedback we took from those who were trying to grind their way in early was that there were far too few nodes. Again, not really communicated super well, but this was actually done on purpose and had two reasons behind it. First, again, gating the access to mitigate lag. They did not want hundreds of thousands of players storming this origin space all at one time. The fewer the nodes, the slower people were going to accomplish the milestones and going to trickle into origin space, working as intended to mitigate their lag issues. But secondly, they did want folks rubbing elbows a little bit, building a few tensions to prepare people for the battles that lay ahead. Now, the second biggest piece of feedback that I've seen is the complaint that I'm mining the isogen needed to even start a takeover. Well, that's going to vary depending on the speed of your ships, how much you have to mine, whether or not you have 10 of 10 or not, and how quickly you're able to capture one of these nodes outside of origin space. They were, of course, very limited and very, very full. But once you got in and were able to capture your first territory, the nodes inside origin space are actually much, much faster. What does this mean for you? This means on your server, you need to reference LCARs or click through the origin systems and go explore them a little bit so you can find a tier 1 system that contains both tier 1 and tier 2 isogen. Why? Well, here we go, folks. Here's the meat of the video. Let's get into some math. Some folks have felt the overwhelming impossibility that is accumulating the amount of currency needed to capture a node. So let's break it down for you and tell you why this is actually super obtainable in a very short period of time if you follow a simple formula. Let's get down to the basics. First, I want to assume that you're an Ops 30 player, okay? I know that there are Ops players higher than that, of course, and Ops players lower than that, but for the purposes of our math today, I want to assume that you're an Ops 30 player. This only goes faster the higher you go, but again, let's assume Ops 30, and I say 30 because hopefully most players are here or beyond, so we feel like we're being slightly conservative and trying to round out an average. By the way, if you're under Ops 25, FYI, super sorry. You could totally help with takeovers. You can come in, you can score points during takeovers, but you do not and will not get the isogen refinery. The refinery starts at Ops 25, so if you want to contribute to your alliance with the refinery, it's time to take a push. up to Ops 25. So let's take a look here at the Tier 1 Refined Isogen Refinery for an Ops 30 player. 17,100 raw is required, and that's probably about 90 minutes of mining for most of you if you can go interrupted outside of Origin space. Okay, again, like I say, it's faster inside Origin space, but outside Origin space, probably roughly 90 minutes of mining, and you'll notice that's for a 2 chest pull. That means you're going to get 5,840 refined Tier 1 Isogen out of this refinery on one redemption of 17,100 raw Tier 1 Isogen. You're also going to get 380 ISO emulsion, but that's for a later video. We're not talking about that at all today. So you get 5,820 refined Tier 1 Isogen. But DJ, the cost to start a territory capture, a Tier 1 territory capture, is a whopping 450,000 refined Isogen. What a whales event. I could never get that. That is only for the payers. Well, good news. Guess what? You don't have to. This is Alliance currency, and you can see the accumulation of your Alliance currency by clicking on the Alliance button, click then on Territory, and then click on Inventory, and you can see what all you have as a team. But you just contributed 5,820 of it yourself. This refinery does have a 22-hour cooldown, so how many players and refines do you need to start your first territory takeover, your first T1 territory takeover? Let's take a look at some quick hand math. You do need 450,000 refined Tier 1 Isogen, but you're getting 5,820 per refine. That's a total of 78 refines, roughly, okay? Now, if you had 78 players in your alliance, everybody does one refine and you're ready for your first takeover, day one. But we all don't have 78, I get that. So let's assume that you got 50, kind of like Crucible of War requires. Let's go with 50, and remember, this is assuming your entire alliance is all Ops 30. If you have higher players, the number of refined Isogen is higher and it goes faster, but again, simple, constant math. We're assuming a 50-man alliance of all Ops 30. You're still done in 2 days. 2 days. But, you're not done. Once you capture that tier 1 zone, you probably want the service in it, right? You probably want the service. All Tier 1 services cost 975,000 refined Tier 1 Isogen. Whew, that's double the cost of actually starting the takeover. That feels like a lot, but it may not be. Let's math it out. Let's add it all up. You need a total, all right, for the start and the service, you need a total of 244 refines. If everybody is Ops 30, divide that by 50 people in the Alliance, you have your territory and your service paid for in 5 days. So when you're choosing a territory to take over, perhaps in your head, look at your consumption, look at your accrual of the Alliance currency, and maybe don't go for the first service, because FYI, services also expire at the end of that takeover period. If you win a takeover, okay, and then you don't activate the service until day 5, guess what? You only get 2 days worth of services. All right, because it's going to expire at the end of that takeover. So if you can't afford to activate the service, maybe hit the pause button just for a minute and look for a territory takeover that begins in 2, 3, 4 days so that you have enough currency not only to start the takeover, but to also pay for the service. Remember, if you have higher ops levels in your alliance, this is going to go shorter. Let's take a look at the math with an average ops of, say, 32 and 34. Take a look here. Still roughly 5 days, well, a little less, 4.5, but more left over because you're pulling more Isogen per refine. You can see the number of refines is dropping, but because you still have 50 players, probably going to take, 4.25, 4.5 days. So not everybody needs to finish the refine on that 5th day, but it does drop the higher your ops level goes. Let's do the same thing for Tier 2. So you've taken your Tier 1 takeover. You're good to go. You've got your Tier 1 takeover. You've activated your Tier 1 service. Let's do the same thing for a Tier 2 takeover. You've already captured your territory. You're ready to move on. P.S. Keep in mind, there's nothing that says you cannot capture another Tier 1. And to be honest with you, I actually highly recommend that while you're building the currency for the Tier 2 capture, go ahead and maybe take another Tier 1, especially if you're a smaller alliance with fewer fewer actives, it may take you a little bit longer to accumulate the currency needed for a Tier 2 territory takeover, and we already know in just a couple of days you can do it for a Tier 1, okay? Now, here's the same Ops 30 player showing his Tier 2 refinery. 2,330 refined Tier 2 isogen, but you're also getting progenitor alloy. This is important because there's an extra part needed to start a Tier 2 takeover, and it's called a progenitor core. You can also see the amount of raw Tier 2 isogen is higher, but this isn't a huge worry because if you own a Tier 1 territory with Tier 2 raw isogen nodes, then they are going to mine a lot faster. Again, choose your territories wisely, folks, based on what's in them. So we see how much refined Tier 2 isogen we get, but we also need this alloy to start a Tier 2. So let's check the alloy conversion first. You will originally want to focus all of your alloy into cores, folks. Hear me. All of your progenitor alloy originally needs to go into cores. You can do other parts, the emitters, the reactors, and the diodes, but you need to choose those carefully as those are dependent on what territory you take over and the cost of starting the service. So check carefully. If you're looking at this particular zone, you want to check what it costs to start that service. All right, because it will rotate between emitters, reactors, and diodes, so you don't always need all three of those. But what you will always need are cores. Cores are needed universally to start a Tier 2 takeover, and it costs 50,000 of those cores to start a Tier 2 takeover. So how many refines is that? Let's check the core refinery. He's getting 290 cores per 5,840 alloy. Let's go back to the last screen where you see he's getting 2,920 alloy per chest. But again, remember that 32,200 raw Tier 2 isogen is getting 2 chests. So he's actually getting the 5,820 alloy needed for a single refine of 290 cores. Let's take a look at the math. 500,000 refined Tier 2 isogen and 50,000 cores to start a Tier 2 takeover. That's a total of 107 refines, again, for only Ops 30 players. And over 1 million alloy needed. But if you divide that out, it's about 172 alloy refines. However, there is another way to get the alloy. You can also get the exact same amount of alloy out of refining 3-star or the Tier 3 raw isogen. But DJ, you don't own a Tier 2 territory yet. You can't mine Tier 3 raw isogen. That's correct, sir. Hold that thought. I'm going to come back to it. Don't worry. You can still get Tier 3 raw isogen. I'm going to I'll show you here in a minute. But if you double up and you do the Tier 3 raw isogen as well, now that's only 86 days or 86 total refines of the alloy. And again, in a 50-man alliance, you can do this in about 2 days. The service is going to cost about another 2 days as it costs 40,000 of some type of progenitor part, and you'll need to check what territory you're looking at. Again, see what it takes. But after you do the cores, you'll want to start on either the emitters, diodes, or reactors, depending on the zone you choose. Also, that Tier 2 service is going to cost about 780,000 Tier 2 refined isogen, and again, roughly 2 days. So if you add everything up to start it and the service, roughly 4 to 5 days free to play. That was the whole point of this video. I wanted to give you a realistic path. Folks, you can do it. If everybody is an Ops 30 and you got 50 actives in your alliance, it will take you 5 days to start your first takeover, and then 5 days to start a Tier 2 takeover after that. Keep in mind, once you own a territory, you do not have to pay the entry fee again to keep it on the next takeover window. That is for the territory alone. Now, the service will go away. So once you take over that territory, you need to start mining and or doing the armadas to accumulate enough currency to pay for the service the next week, but you will not have to pay the entry fee to take over the system. If it's your system, you will defend it without having to pay the entry fee. The only thing you're going to have to pay in week 2 for that system is just simply for the service. I want to show you this here now too. Here is a partially completed chart of the refines and what you can get all the way from Ops 25 up to 50. Now we have most of the data through the upper 30s, but we're missing some of the 40s data and some of the real low like 25, 26, 27 data. But we will update this as more information becomes available. You can see a few things. First, payouts change on the odds. Refinery level doesn't matter. This is based on ops. And then they last 2 levels. Then they go up. So 25, 26, then 27, 28, and so forth and so on. The alloy redemption to any of the progenitor parts are all the same. Thank you to everybody who submitted data for this chart. I really appreciate it. We're going to complete it as soon as we're able. Now, I'm going to leave you with this. A few moments ago, I told you, if you were saving for your Tier 2 territory, that you could still do Tier 3 raw isogen, right? But it's not mineable in any Tier 1 system anywhere. That is correct. There are Tier 3 systems, though, that contain level 35 armadas, that contain massive quantities of raw Tier 3 isogen. You can do these armadas for the cost of only 50 uncommon normal directives, and you can do them in territories you do not own. You can do these armadas if you would rather for even Tier 2 and Tier 1 isogen as well, but the payouts are a little bit smaller. It may still be better than mining for some of you, and some of you may prefer to mine. Here's the trick, though, and we talked about this on the Talking Trek podcast this past Wednesday. You can, folks, do these wrong. The mechanics for these armadas are not bring the biggest ships, because the balance can get off, and if you bring an Enterprise with a cargo of 50 or 60k and the rest of the ships are all Sallies, then you're going to take too much of the payload. If you finish an armada and you look at your battle report and it says your cargo is full, you done messed up. And more importantly, you robbed your alliance of this precious material. This is a new mechanic in dealing with these armadas. It's not power. These armadas are not powerful. They don't hit hard, but the cargo is massive. And warships will rarely have enough cargo space. So what do you look at doing? A couple of options. Balance the power, first of all. Evenly spread the payout to all the members of the alliance. Remember, it does you no good to have a huge bank of this stuff if somebody on your alliance doesn't have enough to do his refine. You're on a 22-hour cooldown. You can only do one a day, so you need your whole alliance doing one a day so that you can get your material fast enough. My team, we're recommending 5 or 6 man teams with 5 of 10 if you've got it, because 5 of 10 belongs on this no matter where. Sidecar captain, I don't care, but if you've got 5 of 10, it is a must-have because you are actually adding to the pot. You are gaining more of this material for your alliance. So 5 of 10, absolute must-have on your crew for all players. Okay? Try to bring roughly 900,000 to 1 million to 1.1 million Vidars. All right, that's what my team is doing. 5-man teams or 6-man teams with roughly a 1 million power Vidar. Why a Vidar? Because it's got enough power to kill the armada with 5 or 6 ships, but it also has a larger cargo, so we're not leaving any of it to float into space. If a player on your team doesn't have that Vidar, that's okay. Don't leave him out. You need everybody playing. Let him bring his 900,000 to 1 million Centurion or Sally or Bortis. Try to balance the power, and you'll balance the payout. No one should ever finish one of these with full cargo, because that means you took too much of the pie. And P.S., your alliance does not get the rest. All right, if your share is too much for your cargo bay, the rest is lost to space. And yes, folks, this is mathematically confirmed. You don't have to use Vidars. You can use Sallies or Cents or whatever, but balance the power. 1 million Vidars will kill a level 35 armada. So you do the math to keep it even for your alliance, and you too can do the Tier 3 isogen refines and speed up your progression. Toot toot, the Super Nerd Express is pulling into the station. Do you have questions? Do you have comments? Leave them in the section below and let us know your initial reactions to Discovery Arc 3 Territory Capture. Please be sure to like the video. It is super nerdy today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please be sure to share this with everybody, because great information is contained within this digital MP4, and it must be shared with the world. My name is UltimatDjz with another Teaching Trek video. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel, and we'll see you next time.